Gabe Sukenik, it's really great to see you. We're live. Where am I calling you from? Where I know I'm in Washington D.C. Where are you?
I'm here in Coinapult's offices in Panama City. So as you can see, just another nice sunny day in Panama, and I'm hanging out in my office as I usually do.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about a couple months ago. I always like to visit with you because uh, it's like a way of connecting with my own personal Bitcoin history. I think it was your smartphone, wasn't it, that delivered to me my first Bitcoin?
It was, yeah, it was the early days back at $30 Bitcoin, and I was just thrilled to be able to start spending and sending Bitcoins with all the libertarians that are up in New Hampshire, you included, and yeah, definitely, yeah, I do like catching up. We have a lot of Bitcoin history, so.
Well, I was just thinking about it this morning that back in those days, it was possible to kind of speak of Bitcoiners as a kind of faction or a small group, a kind of a slightly narrow interest. That's really changed, it seems to me. Anyway, I mean, like when I go to a lot of sort of liberty-minded events, and it's not universal interest in Bitcoin, but it's pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interest from all different parties and people and companies has gotten a lot wider than the early circles of libertarians and anarchists, which is very exciting, I think, because we get to bring this liberating technology to a lot of new people, and yeah, absolutely. Companies are recognizing it, countries are recognizing it, individuals are recognizing it, and they're recognizing different things for different reasons. Bitcoin has a value to a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons, and I think that's hugely important and a big benefit to Bitcoin.
Things seem to be playing themselves out in ways that I've kind of come to expect. And when I first kind of looked into Bitcoin after you introduced me to it, it seemed to me that this is the rollout would follow this exact course. That there would be ever more companies accepting it, ATMs gradually. It's a little frustrating because you know what the history is, but you know what the history is going to be, the future is going to be, but it's sort of unfolding in a sort of gradual, incremental, marginal way.
Yeah, from the early days, I think a lot of us understood, these types of technologies and the changes that we're looking for, unfortunately, don't happen in a year or two. It's about you have to build the infrastructure just around the technology itself before you can even fully utilize it, and we're only just starting to see the beginnings of that. But yeah, I think for a lot of us, we can see the future in 5 or 10 years, and I guess I still get a little sad when I go to the grocery store and I'm handing over fiat instead of zapping Bitcoin. Dealing with change has turned into like the bane of my existence. But the good news is, to me it's so clear that at some point I will be able to pay the check in Bitcoin, that I'm happy to keep building out the infrastructure till we achieve that. So
well, we've got a little bit of a milestone today because you have released a product called Locks, which actually deals with a major thing that everybody sort of is concerned about, and it's a Bitcoin price stability.
Yeah, so Locks is our newest product to try and really reach out to as many new people as possible to be able to take advantage of the Bitcoin network and all it can do. And yeah, so what Locks allows people to do is address the Bitcoin, we know, is really two things. You have the currency on one side and you have the payment network on the other. And the payment network is great. You can send money pretty much anywhere, very low cost. The only problem is when you're dealing with the currency volatility, Bitcoin is unique in that regard where the price can be all over the place. So how do we capture the payment network but hedge ourselves against the volatility? And so this is what Locks does. So people can now take their Bitcoin wallet balances, tie it to another asset, such as dollars or euros or gold or silver, and basically just use the Bitcoin network while sidestepping the currency volatility. And so we feel at Coinapult that this is going to be hugely important for new entrants into the market where volatility and price and the fluctuations were the biggest concern. Now they can use Bitcoin but not be subject to Bitcoin prices. So yeah, we're hugely excited about this product, and I think it'll have a lot of advantages for a lot of people.
Can you give me an example of how that would be an advantage, for example, for a typical end user or consumer? Let's say you're trying to decide whether to accept payment in Bitcoin for a service or a good that you sold. Why would you want to lock in the price over the next month? I guess you're looking at a sort of a 30-day lock at this point, right?
Well, I think it totally depends on the individual user. I think there's a lot of use cases where maybe it's only for a day that you want to lock, maybe it's for 30 days, maybe it's for 2 years. And it totally depends. So we can come up with a day example, a month example, and a year example. So let's say just today I woke up, I heard some awful Bitcoin news, and I think the price might be going down, and I just want to hedge against Bitcoin price volatility. So that might be an example of where you would just use a lock for maybe a day just to see what happens to the price. If it's for a 30-day period, maybe you earn part or all of your salary in Bitcoin, and every month you owe $1,000 worth of rent. Now, if you don't want to play around with your income and basically guess whether Bitcoin prices are going to be up or down over a month, so that you can pay your rent, you might want to just lock in your rent for the month, and that way that you'll have a stable value that you can pay to just meet your bills. And then if you're looking at timelines of a year or 2 years, maybe you just want to have some consumer savings on the side. Maybe you just want savings that exist outside of the banking system and within the Bitcoin network, but you don't want the volatility. If you're putting savings away for a year, a lot of people are not currency speculators. So I think, and we were talking about the early groups of Bitcoin versus now the later groups of Bitcoin. The early guys love to speculate on how much a Bitcoin is going to be worth. Obviously, there's a huge amount of value and volatility, which for traders is good, but for day-to-day consumers that they just want to buy their milk and bread and eggs, this type of volatility is not something they need in their daily, weekly, monthly, yearly life for savings. So I think Locks provides a lot of alternatives for people that want access to this type of payment network, that you can send money anywhere at any time with no restrictions in any size. But because Bitcoin is such a new technology, the currency volatility almost keeps these people out from being able to try out Bitcoin in the Bitcoin network. So for a range of options, I think people are going to find some really great use cases for Locks.
Now, this technology involves some risk on both sides, right? I mean, you can find yourself locking in a price of $600 and over a 30-day period, and suddenly find in 30 days the price is $1,500.
Absolutely.
That's the consumer risk. But on the other hand, we're locking in a price of $600 and then suddenly it crashes to $300. That's a risk that Coinapult bears, right?
Yeah, so certainly somebody bears the risk. So that on the consumer side, the price could go up or down, but you do have the peace of mind knowing that you have a stable asset. In terms of whether Coinapult is taking that risk, a large part of the build out of Locks was making sure that we're 100% hedged against Bitcoin prices. We want to make sure that we can guarantee the locks that our customers have purchased. So we don't want to take that risk on ourselves either. So we've built our trading systems to basically, in the background on Coinapult's side, we're 100% hedged. So if you purchase a gold lock or a silver lock or a euro lock, we make sure that we're hedged to be able to pay out on that no matter what. So part of our service is that we eliminate this risk, it's passed off really outside of Coinapult. We're just dealing with the open market at that point. But neither the consumer nor Coinapult is actually facing the volatility risk in this transaction. So it makes it a really, really secure method of savings and payment for consumers. On Coinapult's side, we guarantee that we're going to be able to meet our requirements, and that's really where the strength of our system is. It was building out this hedging ability.
What is the financial service that you would compare it to outside the Bitcoin world? Is there anything that's like, it might immediately comes to mind futures markets, but maybe that's not quite it.
I guess you can look at it as maybe a simplified futures market. I don't know if I'd really compare it to anything necessarily. I do think that Locks is a really unique product. So I would look at it as, staying within the Bitcoin network, but achieving the stability of typical local currencies, whether that's gold or whether that's euros. I guess I'd look at it as a hybrid type of product more than anything else.
One of the things that's interesting is the timing of the release of Locks. We've seen probably, 3 or 4 months of relative stability in Bitcoin prices, actually.
We were actually joking about that a couple weeks ago when we were really steady at like 620, 630. We were like, we're going to introduce the volatility problem and solution here. But I think it's a good reminder that no matter what, Bitcoin is going to be volatile, not just for the next month. I think it's still going to be volatile for years to come. And just because if you feel comfortable at one point, definitely make sure. Volatility tends to be around in Bitcoin world. It does come in cycles, so things will be quiet. But I think it's going to be just a natural, Bitcoin is still a very small market. There's not a lot of users yet. There's maybe a few million people. And as Bitcoin continues to grow, the volatility is probably going to have to stay just to, allow the market to grow. And, I wish I could predict stability for the next, month, 2 months, 1 year. I'm not that smart, and so I'm probably going to be using Locks to, at least hedge myself against my own ignorance. So
one of the things, Gabe, I really like about this is, I do a lot of speaking and Bitcoin, and people are always quick, with objections. Like, here's a problem, here's a problem. And I often say my answer to this is like, if you recognize a problem, it means other people are recognizing a problem too, and entrepreneurs are at work on a solution. And this is a great thing for me now. When people bring up price volatility, I can just point to your service and say, well, there's smart people out there that are offering market-based products that actually address these concerns. I mean, this is one concern. There are dozens more that people generate. I guess that's the general message here. If individuals, can detect problems in the market, that's the purpose of entrepreneurship. That's the purpose of competitive markets, is to come up with solutions to problems like this, and that's true in the Bitcoin world too.
Yeah, it's been exciting to see tons of companies come up with all sorts of solutions for, whether it's addressing questions of volatility or security or networking. It's been very interesting to watch tons and tons of individuals, companies, just try to get involved and rather than looking at the problems as, all right, well, it's a problem, so it's over. They look at it as an opportunity. It gives them the advantage to build something really useful, and that's certainly what we hope Locks to be. And we think these types of tools are going to allow even more building on, to solve even more problems that Bitcoin hasn't been able to address yet. So one great example of where we see Locks fitting in is in developing countries and developing markets, where if you're in the U.S. or you're in the U.K., signing up for an exchange and getting all these forms done, that seems just like the normal thing to do. If you're a farmer in Africa or Latin America, you're not going through, you're not spending 2 weeks signing up for your new exchange account so you can get Bitcoins. Now we've offered a platform where really anybody can take advantage of this. There's no sign up. It's just a program that people can use, and it's going to enable all sorts of new people to address all sorts of new problems that still exist in the market. And we welcome people to join us. We're excited to be part of the building Bitcoin community.
Now, as I understand it, you've bumped into some problems with U.S. regulators that have prevented you from being able to make this product available to American citizens. Am I right about that?
Yeah, well, it's not even necessarily a particular specific problem. It's the ambiguity is too large in the U.S. right now. We all see that there's lots of pieces moving in some good directions, some maybe not so good directions, and for us, we want to offer our product to as many people as humanly possible. But at the same time, we don't want to sacrifice some of our user base because other users, might cause issues. So for now, we've kind of just taken that choice. We've built locks very specifically to address developing market needs and to bring on new Bitcoiners and new Bitcoin economies. And so that's where our focus is, and we have to maintain that. But we do hope to be able to eventually work with all jurisdictions and let anybody use our platform.
How much did the proposal of BitLicense in New York affect your decision to the U.S.?
We kind of have seen Coinapult, I think, was very forward-thinking on the jurisdiction front. We set up our company here in Panama City very intentionally. A lot of our founders were from the U.S., but we kind of had a feeling that we could anticipate which way the regulatory atmosphere would be headed. And I think we foresaw something closer to bit licenses than where we might otherwise want to be able to facilitate developing markets. If you ask a random guy in South Africa what his social security number is, it's going to be very, very difficult to sign him up for a bank account. And that's part of what you see in developing countries. The reason why 50, 60, 70% of the population doesn't have a bank account is because the banking system won't even really let them in the door. And so that was very, I'd say the bit license announcements kind of, it seemed to support our thesis. I don't know if it really made a distinct change one way or the other, but it was certainly not the direction that we're hoping to take locks.
This is in the economics literature, as you know. It's called regime uncertainty. It can be sometimes devastating for economic innovation. Just this vague fear that you don't know what's going to come next.
Yeah, absolutely. And considering how uncertain Bitcoin is by itself, forgetting about governments, right? And that's more than enough to juggle on its own. We wanted to find what we thought was the most secure jurisdiction for releasing the product that we had in mind.
Yeah, it troubles me too that just to broaden it out a little bit, so many Bitcoin companies are so focused on compliance at this point that they're neglecting improvements in user interfaces. In fact, I think probably we'd be further along today in terms of sort of the functionality of wallets and that sort of thing if these companies were just having to expend so many resources just keeping up with what the regulators are asking of them.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, any dollar that you have to spend towards compliance is a dollar that you're not spending on your business, and yeah, tough to argue with that. I do wish that that those types of expenditures didn't have to be relied on so heavily,
Yeah.
I think you will see it in kind of certain businesses will have that flexibility and certain won't, and you probably will see it influence kind of user experience and the ability to keep innovating on top of Bitcoin rather than defending Bitcoin against all sorts of regulatory hurdles.
It's been really wonderful to get in contact with you again, Gabe. But, it just occurred to me that this conversation we have could be the basis of the fourth video in the series "Shit Bitcoin fanatics say.
I know. Have you spoken with that guy before? I got to meet him at this point because he's turning into celeb status. So.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's brilliant. I mean, I watched the third video. I thought, okay, that's a composite of my last 10 speeches.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I'm more embarrassed or happy by it, but it's one of the two. So.
I like the way he pits himself against all these people. That he's sort of driving crazy in the library and the coffee shop at the park, and the person listening is always bemused, just kind of sitting there, immediately listening to this fanatic, and this happens to me all the time. I try to prevent it, but it's hard sometimes because when people ask about it, it's hard not just to get going and take up an hour.
Yep, I hear you. I know. If we can all figure out how to boil down our hour-long elevator speeches into an elevator speech, I think we'll be doing okay.
Gabe, I blame you for all of this.
Guilty as charged, I guess. I knew you'd like it. I almost felt guilty telling you about it. I thought about, maybe he should. Jeff might like this too much. That could be a problem.
No, it's been wonderful. I just got back from the Chicago Bitcoin conference. I just spoke at a very interesting resource investment conference in Vancouver. Like every other speaker is speaking about mining, and I spoke about Bitcoin mining. So there you go.
We're seeing gold and silver companies have actually started investing in Bitcoin mining. I forget which Canadian firm just recently did that, but
that's really interesting. I don't know if you read my recent piece on this topic, but I had a really interesting conversation with Peter Schiff, who has been a skeptic of Bitcoin.
Sure, but accepts Bitcoin as a form of payment.
Yeah, and now that he accepts it, he's blown away by it. He said to me with his big eyes, he said, "Do you realize, whereas it usually takes us 4 or 5 days to process payments for purchases, that we can actually process these things before the client gets off the phone with almost zero transactions costs?" And of course, Peter Schiff, right? So he's telling me this, as if it's a convenience to me. I'm like, yeah, Peter, this is what I've been telling you for 2 years.
It's pretty exciting, Peter. We agree.
It's glad to welcome him to the fold, though.
Exactly. We don't have to chastise him too much. We got another player in the game, so it's good.
All the best to you, Gabe, and good luck on your new product. And I hope it does really well. Let's try to get an update in a couple months. How about?
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks, Jeff. And for anybody interested, just visit Coinapult.com, and locks will be available for your use.
All the best, Gabe. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good one.